Hey everyone, welcome back to Orchestra Tube. This is a viola do's and don't video. So some things you should and should not do for the viola. Why am I making a separate video for viola? Well, hey, I'm a violist, full disclosure. I do think you really do need to think of your viola and your viola players differently than your violin players. I believe that they need encouragement, nourishment, separate attention, and need to be nurtured like their own instrument that they are. So a lot of, I'll be working on some resources for viola choirs and music like that, but just some logistics. First thing is when you're looking to buy instruments, or if you are a new teacher and you get into your job and you look at your fleet of instruments, one of the things that I like to look at for viola is the weight of them. A lot of times student instruments will be extremely heavy violas because there's the lack of craftsmanship. So you want to just pick it up and say, is this really something that I could envision playing on for a 45-minute or an hour, or in high school, an hour and a half long class? Another thing you want to look at too is the width of the fingerboard this way, because a lot of times these fingerboards are not finished, and so they're just little baseball clubs. I actually have this one cut down. This is my personal instrument, but I have it as when I'm looking for new instruments, I do try and look at this measurement. If I was going out to buy new violas for my classroom, I would specifically ask about having those finished, because basically they're unfinished when they're that thick. So if you're buying from some place that's, got workers or workmen, luthiers there, that's something that you can ask about, the width of the viola necks. It really does make a big difference in their playability and the student's comfort level. Again, just like with the bass, you want your viola players to be comfortable. Otherwise, they're just going to hate playing the instrument and they're going to look for another instrument to play. So we don't want that. We want them to continue to love this beautiful instrument. So we, as teachers, need to continually look at the equipment and see if that's what's causing the problem. Another thing is the setup for violas. Because the bouts are so much wider, we really need to make sure that people are getting those up and over on their shoulders. A lot of times kids play like this and then we have neck problems. The viola is way harder to pick up and hold up if you're not using your larger bone structure, rather than just having it slide down off the chest. I call that the wall versus their table. Okay, so that's really important. As teachers, we need to cultivate that, because as students get older, they're going to play bigger instruments, and if they don't have the setup for holding up basically a coffee table, they're gonna be in pain, and they're gonna have injuries that can be lifelong lasting. So we don't want that. So we do really want to make sure that they are set up properly and that they're vertically aligned. That's basically it for the viola in that sense. Let's talk about setup here on the instrument equipment. Some of my go-to, I use a Mach 1, but like I said, that is personal. But my go-to shoulder rest is the Everest shoulder rest. It's inexpensive and it stays on, most importantly, and they're very accessible to students. So I like that one for students. But the Mach 1s have inexpensive plastic versions, and these just tend to be a little bit more ergonomic. My go-to chin rest is the Kaufman side-mounted chin rest. The reason why I want a flat cup and not side tailpiece mounted is because you can alter this. You can put pieces of cork underneath it, build it up. You can build up the shoulder rest, and I can basically fit this to any student's body type. But the minute you have an over the tailpiece chin rest, which is what all of them come with, which drives me nuts, you're really limiting your options. So just about all of my violins and violas, if I, as I get more money, I buy more chin rests, Kaufman chin rests, and I buy more Everest shoulder rests, and that is our go-to. The other very important item, this is my personal instrument, but every single student, every instrument in my fleet has 4 tuners, period. That is an absolute necessity if you want students to learn how to tune. If you want to have better intonation in your groups, they have to learn how to take care of their instruments personally themselves. So those 3 things are key as far as this part of the instrument. Got to get everybody on fine tuners. And I have tried many different types of tuners, and there are tailpieces with built-in tuners. I don't prefer those because they tend to have mechanics that are unreliable and they're hard to turn. So you want to just get these Whitner fine tuners. Just get a bunch of them. They're pretty inexpensive. And then just get some tailpieces. And I actually have taken apart violins and replaced tailpieces, and then I can put the tuners on that I want. So it's really not that difficult. Just make sure that you keep the instrument upright and you don't let the sound post fall inside. Make sure that you have a general idea of how to line that bridge up. You want to line it in between the, line it up with the lines of the F holes this way. And then you want to center it over the fingerboard. Use the fingerboard as a guide. But just don't be afraid to get rid of those tailpieces if they're not feasible and usable for the students. And you'll know when they aren't. Some of the other chin rests that I use, I did have a student who was allergic to nickel. So those Whitner hypoallergenic chin rests are wonderful. But again, this whole area has to fit each individual student. It takes some time, but I guarantee you if you spend the time to get kids set up properly, you don't have any strangeness, any odd things going on posturally, you're going to set those kids up for good playing habits, and great intonation is going to follow in your groups, and it's just going to be heard from the audience. So I highly encourage you that you look at every single student, make sure that especially for viola that they've got level shoulders, they're not raising one shoulder or something like that. We're doing this, something odd. But take a look at all the ergonomics and make sure that people are aligned, and that if their necks are long or short, that you accommodate their setup. Especially on viola, that is super, super important. Okay, see you in the next video. Thanks.